Good morning from Yummy Bay TV. Wishing you all well, sending loads of love from a cold, bleak Sunday morning down here in the West Country. Hopefully, a little bit of sun later on. Either way, I will be going now. Remember that live tonight. We ride tonight again, or early evening, if you get what I mean. Right, we're going to get to some deeper stuff now. Not so much of a long talk, but in reality, very good question, some of you, about the men that lose their heads while they're away during long periods of incarceration or doing a life sentence or very long sentences. Why is it the threshold of being able to cope and then one day your head's gone? Threshold. You cross the line of no return. And I look back into history of a few, and recently as well, there's a shocking one coming in. I hope that he's all right. But when I look back, of men that were serious powerhouses that used to be fighting with staff that were respected everywhere from every city in the country. I start with one from Manchester, Parnell D. I was in the locals as a kid, but I heard a lot about him before I went on the long run of the Cat A's, if you get what I mean, from men that were already doing life sentences and were coming and going from the Cat A's. And then with my own eyes, I saw a couple of things down local blocks while I was on the move in the 90s. And this guy was seriously strong. I witnessed a couple of things where they were coming unstuck with this guy. Another real hard case, but decent guy as well, right? But years later, on my first landing meet, years later, when he was walking with his head down, what happened? They were taking a piss out of him. People that didn't know him from past, some of those that knew him from past were still standing up strong for him, like trying to help. But I couldn't make my own decision because I hadn't spent a lot of time with him on normal location when he was all right. All I know is I spoke to him out the window and he was a decent geezer and, he was a household name. But years later, a shadow of his former self. Now, we know that men can lose their head over drugs, and there's a couple of cases like that. We know that some men never come to terms with what they've done, and they're so nobody knows what goes on in a man's mind. It don't matter what he portrays himself as on the landing. When he bangs up and he goes to bed, what is he really thinking? Does he feel guilty about some things? Is it too much of a cross to bear with some of the things that they might have done that nobody knows about? The hidden skeletons in the closet, which, in reality, a lot of people have inside or out, if you get what I mean. But it was sad to see it and people taking a mickey. You know what I mean? I'm hoping, because that was the last occasion I saw him, I'm hoping that he could have come back together. Now, we know those Cat A's and other places are very, very serious places and dangerous, hostile places where it can go off anytime. You could be the best fighter and get a punch and then you're not the same again. There was a legendary family from Liverpool, Fitz something, I can't remember his first name, but I hope he's all right too as well now. There was a guy, a professor looking guy, dark, I think his name was Mikey, built like a tank. He always used to shout to me, there can only be one, Yummy. But he looked like he might be off his rocker a little bit, but he wasn't. He might have been one of those over intelligent people, if you get what I mean. You get them in the Cat A's as well. And him and this guy from Liverpool, they caught up, but he gave him a right hook. And that Fitzgee's thing wasn't the same again. Hopefully he came back, because I think I know another member of the family. Don't want to say too much about it, but for about 2 weeks, I never saw him again. But it definitely wasn't the same man as before that punch was swung. You know what I mean? So that shows you the fragility of the mind and the human body. It only takes one. We've heard about men dying from one punch and their head hitting the floor and that kind of stuff. So it's still another dangerous bit of ground there. Now, a lot of men during that time, like the ones that might sell a bit of gear, that don't touch any drugs at all, or they might have a little bit of puff or whatever, in later life, coming through the system, through the B's, the C's, when I got recalled, and hearing now the other day, another big name from Liverpool, Lee Katz, he knocks out he knocks out a lot of people as well. Very, very feared man. I told you about the time when he hit a lifer that had never ever been hurt before in a fight, and then he thought he hit him with a tray or a thing, but I kept saying, nah, it wasn't. He's going, yes, he nearly hit me with the tray because he got knocked out. Very hard for people to accept. But his brain was still there a little bit when I was talking to him, this guy. So I know, but it still affected him, if you get what I mean. Or was he in shock? Or did he always believe what a lot of men believe? You can't knock me out until you get knocked out. It's another hard cross to bear. Defeat, it can break some real strong men when you think that you can't lose, or you come up against somebody that your soul seems to be, you coming to terms with those kind of things can be very difficult as well. But oh shit, what was I just gonna say? Yeah, Lee Cass. So allegedly smoking spice, right? And other men that would never touch the brown, but yet he would touch spice because you believe it's similar to weed and that kind of stuff. But it's not, because it could be sprayed with shit, very dangerous stuff. My God, I've seen some things now, hearing now that Lee is been sectioned and in a nut house, right? Can he come back from that? I don't know. I'll keep you posted on that. But walking around the landings naked and eating a mattress and that kind of stuff. Wow. Even when I was finishing off, when I got the 8 after the 13 and I was in the C's, and all those from the Cat A's were starting to come down in category, were starting to smoke spice in the C's or B's, or did it in fact reach the A's all the way down? Because it's a pastime, isn't it, where you want to get over things, and it's the one drug, I suppose, that is going to take you away from everything, because you could stay in yourself for about a month and not come out, and time will just pass, because we all hurt individuals, traumatized, loss, love, rejection, not much support outside, girlfriend gone, not much to look forward to with a long period of time in front of you. But something chews it halfway through, and then by that time you should be getting ready to be going out, but now you're taking the worstest substance that's ever existed in those jails that are tearing the jails apart. Let's get this straight. And ruining minds and lives forevermore, because you don't, the greedy dealers, the spraying on, they don't care. If you're not going to take it, some of them will just have the attitude, well, let them take it. It's not me that's dying. And but the episodes that come from those kind of things. And that's just one incident of a man who's staunch. I mean, how many of them are in the Cat A's going through certain things? We also know that you don't have to touch drugs to lose your mind. You know what I mean? We talk about the suicides from big names: Dave Crow, Desi Cunningham, Wayne Oren. We know Wayne had mental issues, and that big love there to the family, and Desi's also. But Desi's wasn't apparent. Now, certain men come out. I spoke to Dave Crow, Stevie Gillen will tell you this as well, before he went blocked, and he committed suicide. But some men's, it's not apparent that they've got mental issues. They talk perfectly all right, but then I'm traumatized, but I could talk perfectly all right. But, or maybe the ones that come through it all, maybe the skeletons, or maybe the God, what is it then that some men get through all of that, to the end, to be able to live to tell the tale and still be of kind of sane mind, having gone through drugs, trauma, all that kind of stuff? Is it the accepting of what happens? Is it letting go? Is it God, leaving it to him? Or is it some people's skeletons are worse than your own, you know what I mean? And guilt can be a very, very different thing to live with, depending on the issue, whether it be abuse, you know what I mean, domestic, mum, dad, it could be anything, whatever it is that makes the person always think about that bit in their head. Because to me and you will say, yeah, but that bit you should be able to manage. No, everybody is different with, with the things that have happened, what they feel guilty about, what they can't let go of. And in them split seconds, especially in an environment where you're locked all away, all alone, whether you got the biggest name or not, that it only takes a moment to say, you know what, I've had enough of all this. Let me call it a day. Do you see what I mean? Or we know the authorities fail some of those men, and don't really care because of the problems, the past and things like that. Or they've got too much to deal with on the landings on a day-to-day basis, you know what I mean? But why is it? Why is it? All right, we could point to age. Why we're not the same men as we was. I'm not the same man as I was, but I'm still laughing every day. But even those that never smoked during their sentences, they're out. But they're a bit more bitter and twisted, if you get what I mean, or they're traumatized in other ways. You see what I mean? To live outside life after all that. I was always on edge waiting for the door to open, but that's behavior related to drugs, related to this. But if you take them all out of the system and live free, with God and the Spirit, and you're coming back to make amends, and you want to get, you want to be a good person in later life, then as time goes on, I feel that you will get used to it all out here and become, you know what, that happened, we were all wrong, we move forward and we have another go, because many of these men stood up to everything. Why is it? You know what I mean? We say today, those places are no good for no one. I keep asking, you lot keep asking me about who was the last man standing in that life. If they all fought, all the big 10 names, 15 names, I used to lie on my bed, right? I was thinking, if GN fights, if WS fights, Kevin Lane, if Tony Hunter fights, all three of them, if John and them tussle, if Charlie and they have a fight, which way is it going to go? Many, 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 many massive names. I used to think, but if he hits you, and he comes at you with that one, if you don't get, because in reality, a question you asked me the other day, I think it's Matthew, who's the last man standing? If you go in the cell and they all have a one-on-one, how can you ever tell? Because he threw one today, or he stole it on you first on that day, you know that he stole it on you. So then the next day, time you fight, you'll be prepared for that, and you might steal it on him. So is there any rules? Is there? They're really going to have to trade up. And what about the loser? How, with those kind of egos, who's going to want to face defeat and not come back with a weapon or something like that? You know what I mean? It's a very, very hard one. Obviously, some men have their nemesis. No matter what you throw, some men are really, really quick, but some men's power landing one. You might not be a better fighter than Kevin Lane. Say, Kevin Lane can throw 100 punches very, very quickly, but you might meet someone who's got a bit more power, who can't fight as well as him, but if he lands, he might knock you out. WS, when he comes forward, you know what I mean? He's sizing you up straight from the start. Tony knows what's coming. John, everybody, Kev, they know what's coming. So they're thinking, hold on, how am I going to, taking on the big names, which a lot of them have, you've got to have it right. They still went in there. They never they weren't shrinking violets. They had a go. You know what I mean? It's very difficult. And then everyone gives their version of things. But really, in reality, you know what I mean, on any given day, you know what I mean, it could all be the other way round, Matthew. Even with Charlie Bronson. I said, Charlie, terrible. I thought Charlie fight with the screws or the thing. But with certain names, he won't answer back. He won't fight. You know what I mean? And you would ask me then, who could all those ones that I mentioned, do I think that they could be? Yes, I do. In Australia, for the simple reason, I don't think, not saying Charlie, we know Charlie could knock out loads of people, but would he give it his best, or would he just say, look, leave it, drop it out, or whatever? He hasn't come on normal location, but yeah, Uncle Yummy rates Charlie Bronson very, very high physically. Everybody's getting old. No one's the same men of what they once was. The younger kids coming through now, like I was seeing a man, like men that was doing what I was doing, running around smoking or taking liberties, living fast every day. But I got away with stuff. There's certain youngsters from all around the country, 25, 26, they let me off, but they never let them off, and they have to take little knockouts too in later life. But in the early bits, you wasn't really taking you weren't taking a lot of defeats. You know what I mean? But as you get older, you know what I mean, and the wear and tear, not looking after yourself, them kids, they're thinking, no, not really. And they're not rating you the same way that they would rate me. Or they just say, that's Yami, we'll leave that kind of thing. I'll just tell Yami off kind of thing. But I saw that quite a lot with those Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool youngsters who are looking at certain men when you don't pay, when you don't think. They want a reason to knock you down, if you get what I mean. They're looking because they're building their thing up. Well, you owed me. I never let you get away with that. Bang, hold that. Make sure all of you watching, when you owe me money, you pay me. Otherwise, you're going down. You see what I mean? So it's the same thing as time goes on. But in the end, none of us are the same as what we was. And those places cause lasting damage. And sad to report, you know what I mean, there's many men that don't come through it all, that were once all together up here as well, you know what I mean. So just a little deep talk. I'll be up later on with a live. Yeah, sorry, I just drifted off there. Loads of love.